All right, everyone, get ready for a deep dive. We're going exploring AI and medical imaging today.
Ooh, sounds exciting.
It is, and you know what? We're tackling this new AI framework, RadAlign.
RadAlign. Yeah, I've heard some buzz about it.
Yeah, it's making waves. So we're going deep right into the research paper. It's called RadAlign, Advancing Radiology Report Generation with Vision Language Concept Alignment. We really want to see what's got everyone so excited,
I think it's more than just excitement, actually. What really makes RadAlign stand out is it doesn't just, throw out a diagnosis like some AIs. It can actually explain, how it got there, just like a real human radiologist would.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying this AI is actually learning to see like a
Yeah.
radiologist? I mean, how's that even possible?
That's the really clever bit. RadAlign, it goes for this challenge that has kind of tripped up other AI models in healthcare. They're either great at spotting the problem, but then they can't explain why, or they try to, write up a whole report but end up making stuff up.
So you're basically saying it's like getting a diagnosis, but with absolutely zero context. Not exactly reassuring, right?
Right.
Especially when it's about your health.
Exactly. And RadAlign, it's designed to solve that. It's aiming for both, being accurate and being able to explain things. That's a total game changer when it comes to building trust and making sure the results are actually reliable.
Okay, you've got me hooked. But before we get all into the details, can we rewind a bit? You were saying RadAlign sort of copies how radiologists actually work.
Hmm.
So how do they approach like a chest x-ray? What are
Yeah.
you looking for?
Imagine a detective searching for clues. Radiologists, they don't just glance at an x-ray and magically have the answer. They have a system. First, they zero in on specific visual things, or diagnostic criteria they call them. Stuff like, how big is the heart? Is there any cloudiness in the lungs? Where's the diaphragm sitting? These are the building blocks of their whole analysis.
So it's not like they have some x-ray vision superpower. It's more like connecting the dots, right?
Exactly. Then they use all their medical knowledge to connect those visual clues to potential conditions and explain it all in a clear report. And that's the brilliant part about RadAlign. It's trying to do that same logical step-by-step process.
All right, let's break down how RadAlign actually does this. You said it has three main components, right?
Right. First up is what they call visual concept alignment. And you can think of this as the radiologist's eyes. RadAlign uses this super cool AI called a vision language model, or VLM for short. It matches those visual features in the X-ray with the right medical concepts.
So it's like teaching a computer to look at and understand medical images, just like a radiologist does. That's pretty wild.
It is. It's learning to pick out the really important parts. Then there's the second component called knowledge-guided prompting. This is the brain of the radiologist, where the report actually gets written.
This is where it gets really interesting. Does it just let the AI go wild and write whatever it wants?
No, not at all. RadAlign uses what's called a large language model, LLM, to write the report. But here's the key. It doesn't just let the LLM run free. It feeds the LLM very specific information based on those visual concepts that it picked out in the first step.
Okay, I get the knowledge-guided prompting idea is crucial, but can you really break it down for me? How does it work?
Think of it like giving the LLM a map. Instead of letting it just wander around in all its huge language knowledge, RadAlign gives it very specific prompts based on what it's seen in the X-ray. So the LM stays focused, grounded in reality. It's less likely to just make stuff up.
Oh, so it's like giving the AI some guardrails to keep it on the right path. That makes a lot of sense. But what about the third component? You mentioned something about learning from past cases, right?
Right. The third part is retrieval-augmented generation. And this is where RadAlign gets even smarter. It's like giving it access to a massive library of past X-rays and reports.
So it can learn from those cases and make even better decisions, kind of like how doctors look at textbooks and journals, right?
Exactly. It can search this database, find cases similar to the one it's looking at, and then use those examples to write a report that's more accurate and consistent. It's constantly learning and getting better.
Okay, that's really impressive. But I've got to be honest, I'm also a little bit skeptical. How do we know these reports are actually reliable? What's stopping the AI from making mistakes?
That's a really good question, and it's one the researchers, they really wanted to make sure they addressed it. They tested RadAlign really thoroughly on this massive data set of chest X-rays, to see if it could actually hold up in the real world. And the results, well, they were pretty amazing, actually.
Okay, Colonel John, don't leave me hanging. Did it pass the test?
Oh, it did more than pass. It actually did way better than anyone expected. It was super accurate at picking up a whole bunch of different conditions. Sometimes it even outperformed models that were specifically designed for one particular disease. And it consistently created these detailed, reliable reports.
So it's not just a cool idea on paper. It actually works. That's really cool. But how do they actually measure that reliability you mentioned? What makes a report good in this case?
They used a special metric called the green score to judge the reports. And this isn't just some random made-up measure. Green score is all about clinical accuracy. So it's about making sure the information in the reports is actually helpful for doctors when they're making decisions about, real patients.
So if a report gets a high green score, that means doctors can actually trust what RadAlign is saying. That's a big deal, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's about building trust and making sure that AI is actually being used in a way that helps both doctors and patients,
This all sounds incredible, but it kind of makes me wonder, if AI can already look at X-rays and write reports, does that mean radiologists are going to be out of a job? Will we all have robot doctors soon?
Yeah, I hear that a lot. But the researchers who made RadAlign, they're pretty clear about this. They see AI as a tool, something to help human experts, not to replace them. Think of it like a really skilled assistant for radiologists.
So like a second set of eyes that can catch things even a trained expert might miss.
Exactly. It can analyze images, it can find patterns, it can highlight things that might have been overlooked. But the final call, the interpretation of all that and thinking about it with the patient's history and the human touch in patient care, that's all still with the doctors.
That makes sense. AI can do the heavy lifting, looking at all that data,
Yeah.
but as the human doctor who brings the experience, the empathy, the understanding of the whole patient, it's more like a team, right? Not a replacement.
Yes, exactly. Medicine isn't just about, patterns and data. It's about understanding each individual, considering their whole situation, and being compassionate. Those are things that, at least right now, AI can't really do.
Okay, so we've covered the problem RadAlign is trying to solve, how it's designed, how well it did in the tests, and even this whole AI versus humans thing. But there's something else I'm curious about. The paper mentions something called concept interpretation and how RadAlign actually lets us kind of peek into how it makes decisions. That sounds like we're getting into the AI's mind.
It is fascinating, and it gets to the core of why trust in AI is so important. The researchers, they made these visualizations called concept token attention weights. They're like heat maps showing which parts of the X-ray RadAlign really zeroed in on when it made its diagnosis.
So it's showing us what caught the AI's eye, what it thought was important.
Exactly, and here's the amazing thing. Those highlighted areas, they often line up perfectly with the areas that radiologists themselves would focus on. Like if RadAlign is looking at an X-ray for signs of pneumonia, the heat map might light up around certain parts of the lungs, showing that that's where it's focusing.
Wow. So we're not just like taking the AI's word for it. We can actually see the evidence behind how it's thinking. That's a huge step towards like transparency and understanding how these things actually work.
Absolutely. It helps us move away from thinking of AI as this mysterious black box, and we can actually see the logic in its decisions, which is really important, especially in healthcare, right?
So this concept interpretation, it's not just a fancy visual. It actually helps us trust these AI systems more and make sure they're making choices that line up with what human experts would do.
Yes, it really does. But before we get, too excited about all the great things RadAlign could do, it's good to remember that this is still early days. The whole field of AI in healthcare it's always changing, and RadAlign itself has room to improve. The researchers mentioned refining the concept formulation so it can capture even more complex medical knowledge.
So it's like giving RadAlign a bigger, better medical textbook so it can learn even more specialized stuff. What would that actually look like?
Yeah, it's kind of like upgrading RadAlign's medical knowledge, giving it access to that next level of detail.
So what kind of impact could that have if this performance got even better?
Well, imagine if RadAlign could go beyond just identifying those basic conditions and actually start to understand all the little variations, the subtypes.
Yeah.
It might be able to tell the difference between different stages of a disease, or pick up on those really subtle things that could mean like a rare condition, or even maybe predict how a patient might respond to different treatments.
Wow. We're talking about AI that can truly understand and reason about some really complex medical stuff. That's pretty amazing.
It is. And remember, this is just with chest x-rays, right? RadAlign was designed for those. But these core ideas, matching those visual clues with medical knowledge and using LLMs to write reports, they could work for all sorts of medical imaging.
So we could have RadAlign-like systems for CT scans, MRIs, mammograms. The possibilities are kind of mind-blowing.
They are. And as these AI models keep getting better, their ability to handle even more complex medical data, that's only going to increase. Imagine a future where AI can look at not just the images, but also patient records, genetic info, lab results, lifestyle stuff, all those data points, and give doctors this really complete picture of each patient.
It'd be like an AI detective, right?
Yeah.
Piecing together all the clues to solve these really tough diagnostic puzzles.
That's a great way to put it. And that kind of big picture analysis could lead to diagnoses that happen earlier, are more accurate, treatments that are tailored to each person, and ultimately better results for patients.
Okay, you've convinced me. I'm definitely on board with this whole AI thing. But with all this amazing potential, we've got to talk about, the risks too, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the ethical things we need to think about when we're developing and using tech like this, especially in healthcare?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Ethics are super important here. We have to be really, really careful about how we develop and use these systems, especially when it comes to, all that sensitive medical information.
So what are the key areas where we need to be extra cautious?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is making sure patient privacy and data security are top-notch. These AI models, they're trained on tons of patient data, and we absolutely have to make sure that data is handled the right way, ethically.
Yeah, I mean, we've all heard those stories about data breaches and people's privacy being violated. We can't let that happen with medical info,
Exactly. It's not just about keeping it secure, it's also about using AI in a way that's fair for all patients. We have to think about, potential biases in the data and make sure those biases don't end up leading to unfair or discriminatory outcomes.
So it's not just about the tech itself. It's about the choices we make as humans, how we build and use it.
Exactly. We have to approach this with a sense of responsibility, make sure it's being used to create a healthier future for everyone, one that's more equitable.
That's a really important point. Well, we've seen how RadAlign is really pushing the limits of what AI can do in medicine, and it's clear that this is just the beginning. It's going to be amazing to see where it goes from here.
It really is. The future of healthcare is being shaped by all these incredible advances in AI, and it's an exciting time to be, right here, watching it all happen.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into RadAlign and AI-powered radiology. It's been eye-opening, and I think you'll agree the future of healthcare is, well, it's looking pretty bright.